Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Three High Safeties. This is our fantasy football edition. I am joined, as always, by our fantasy football quote-unquote experts. You got to throw the quote-unquote on there because we're all struggling out there, at least in a few leagues. I'm joined by Ian Hartitz and Andrew Erickson. The big news that broke before last week was Antonio Brown going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's been a little bit iffy on that wide receiver core, a lot of injuries. Some guys like Mike Evans maybe haven't been performing nearly as well as we thought. Now we throw Antonio Brown into the mix. So I'm going to go to you first, Ian. What do you think about Antonio Brown? He's obviously someone you want to have on your bench if you can, but is there real upside for him in this offense?
Absolutely. I think he should be an auto-star as early as week 9. You know, you can say what you want about the guy off the field, personally, how he ended his tenures in Pittsburgh and with the Raiders. I understand all his concerns, but at the end of the day, two men on this planet have spent the better part of the last 6 months trying to recruit this guy. Tom Brady and Russell Wilson. So whatever we think, two of the best quarterbacks in the game seem to really want this guy on their squad. You mentioned the injuries, man. Chris Godwin with a fractured left index finger. Even Mike Evans, I truly think he's been playing through kind of a bum ankle since week 2. Bruce Arians and some of these, I think it was Arians, or one of his teammates otherwise, even, came out and said that the fact that Evans is continuing to play through the pain, not bring it up in the media, not worry about the targets, his teammates, really looking up to him for that. So even if Evans and Godwin were perfectly healthy, I still think we'd have to give AB, weekly kind of upside wide receiver 2 treatment because, look at how they're using Evans this year. It's almost purely as a vertical downfield threat. And that's what Arians said before the year. They think he's best running downfield. They don't ask him to do much otherwise. And then we got Godwin more in this low A-dot kind of screen heavy role. So they're kind of missing this true number 1 alpha receiver that can do everything at every area of the field. I'm not saying Godwin and Evans can't be that guy. We saw them both function as that guy last year, Evans for much longer. But the way they're using them this year, I think it makes a lot of sense that AB can slide right in there and command plenty of targets. Scotty Miller has 32 targets in 7 games this year. Evans is at 39. So they don't even need to really change much other than slot AB in the 3 wide receiver sets, which why would you go through all these headaches, all these PR troubles to get AB if you're not going to start the guy immediately? He's immediately going to be a top 20 wide receiver for me as early as week 9.
Yeah, I agree with Ian in terms of, starting him week 9 against the Saints. I think that's a really good spot for him to blow up, especially because he's got some history with the Saints. He had a workout with them and, clearly it didn't go well. So I think that he's going to be really motivated, and you don't know how well Godwin is going to be coming back. We don't know if he'll be available in that game. He's dealing with a hand injury. So, part of playing wide receiver requires that you catch the ball with your hands. So that could definitely be a contributing factor. But for me, if AB blows up, in that game, I think that he's a sell high candidate for me, just because of the fact that, he's not the most reliable guy. Looking down the stretch and you look at the schedule after the game against the Saints, which is a really good matchup. You have the Rams, you have the Chiefs, and you have a bye week. So not good matchups. You don't know how the targets are going to be distributed. So I think that's a really good chance to sell high. And again, you don't know how long you're going to have AB for. Every team that he's gone to, it looked good, and then it didn't last very long. So I think you can get the most of it from that Saints matchup, and then you get out because you can get someone probably a little bit more reliable. And also as well, Tom Brady's fantasy production, traditionally, I know Ian talked about Derrick Henry and about how winter is coming, but it's the complete opposite when it comes to Tom Brady. His production always kind of tails off towards the end of the year. He's an older quarterback. It's not that crazy to think, but, the last 2 seasons, he's gone from around 19 fantasy points per game during the first half of the season, down to 16 fantasy points per game. So I think those are 2 things to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, I think I'm agreeing with what both you guys are saying. You can add Lamar Jackson to the list of elite quarterbacks who were lobbying pretty hard for Antonio Brown in the offseason. So he's clearly not – this is not like a Leonard Fournette situation where he's, given away and then brought in to maybe add some depth. He is an elite player. He played in very limited time last season like an elite player, and he was feted by a bunch of different teams. But I also agree that this wide receiver core can go a lot of different directions. We don't necessarily know, and he's not the most reliable player. So you picked him up for free if you have him on your team right now. So ride him while you can. Enjoy the ride for whatever you can. And if you want to get out at a certain point, I wouldn't be against that too. So I think I'm agreeing with both of you guys.
Yeah, if you can sell high enough on anybody, I guess they are available. But we also get to a point with some players where we don't even look to sell low on them. We can just look to cut ties completely with them. Guys, it has been 7 weeks of action. Who out there, and I'll start with you, Andrew, who out there are you just giving up on, cutting, you're done?
Yeah, so I made a grave mistake last week. I should have cut Mark Ingram to pick up a tight end to fill in for Mark Andrews, and instead I cut Chase Edmonds. So yeah, I made a big mistake, and I can't imagine that, or I'm gonna have to imagine that we see these rookie running backs, Swift got more involved, and I can't imagine they need to get Dobbins more involved. He just offers so much more upside, and we really want to see this Ravens offense start to kind of break out, kind of like last year. They need to get more production from the running back position. I mean, what's the difference between Ingram and Gus Edwards at this point, really? You could just pick up Gus Edwards in case you're, worried about losing out on a Baltimore Ravens running back. So again, Mark Ingram, you can maybe try to trade him first, but I'm ready to cut ties. How about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm going to go to quarterback, and I'm going to go to Cam Newton here. Now, it pains me to say this because he was someone I was pretty high on coming into the season. Everyone was probably riding high on Cam after that Seahawks game where he showed the ability not only early in the season to run, probably at an unsustainable level, honestly, that he was running so much and near the goal line, but he was also able to pass. He's definitely regressed. You're just not going to get any passing production out of him. You're not going to get the high-level production that we saw in that game going forward if you've seen the evidence. And he just doesn't have the receivers. I mean, look at the difference between Tom Brady last year and this year when he has a change of scenery and a change of weapons. So Cam Newton's still dealing with that. And the possibility for a 2018 type of drop off for what we're seeing for him is also a possibility that I think is very strong going on this season. So for all those reasons, and the fact that there's just so much depth out there. Now, maybe you're playing in a 16-team league where everyone holds 4 quarterbacks on their roster. So I get it. You may need him in that, a 2-quarterback league, something like that. But beyond that, we have so many quarterbacks who have emerged this year, whether it's an older guy like Teddy Bridgewater, a veteran who's emerging this year, or you have rookies like Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. There's just so many different options there that I have trouble seeing that you'd have to hold someone like Cam Newton rather than take a risk on someone else. Maybe even Tua going forward could have more upside and have some receivers to throw to there. So there are just many more options if you're looking for high-end play going forward than Cam Newton. And I think it's safe at this point to drop him, especially in a deep position like quarterback.
Yeah, I got another elderly NFL veteran to cut ties with everyone. I don't mean to be age shaming here, but T.Y. Hilton, I think it's time just to give up on the Colts, longtime wide receiver 1. He's going to bounce back at some point. There's been, situations where he lost the ball in the sun. They hit him in the chest, would have been a 50-yard score. Just other games, I got a touchdown nullified the last game he was out there. But look, now they're using Marcus Johnson as, their main air yard field stretcher guy. Zach Pascal is going nowhere, and they seem to really love him in the red zone. Man, that target ceiling is looking lower than ever. And again, at some point, he's going to find the end zone, and I don't think he's completely washed just yet. But, the no Andrew Luck stat splits before were just, with Luck and with Jacoby Brissett pretty much. But now that we've got pretty much a half a season's worth of snaps with someone other than Jacoby Brissett, that being Phillip Rivers. And look, I'm not saying Rivers has been a complete world beater this season, but we've seen Marcus Johnson, we've seen Pascal have decent games, even Paris Campbell. Hilton hasn't been able to do that in an offense where his teammates have been able to put up even more projection with similar opportunities for stretches. So with Hilton, we got streaking, aging QB and a run-first offense, and you look at the schedule coming up, and it's kind of one soft run defense after another. So I think it's going to be the Jonathan Taylor show more weeks than not here moving forward, and I just don't think there's enough consistent targets for T.Y. to be anything more than, kind of this boomer bust wide receiver 3, but the booms are pretty far and few between these days, so I'm fine letting T.Y. kind of sit away on the waiver wire.
2020 has shown us anything is that the ramp up of a preseason maybe would have helped out the veterans a little bit more because they are not performing at the level that some of these rookies are. So we'll get into the starts and sits for this week. And my start is going to be Le'Veon Bell. Again, we throw out this revenge game thing. It's kind of a fun narrative when we talk about fantasy football. But in this particular case, you have the Chiefs who are favored, I think, by almost 3 touchdowns. And in these types of situations, you sometimes see, okay, not the primary back getting in on the action. And it just makes more sense for in a game where the Chiefs should basically be able to control whatever they want and would do whatever they want is to get creative using Le'Veon Bell in a matchup where, it's pretty clear that, Andy Reid would be, hey, let's get this guy a touchdown against his old team. It makes a lot of sense there. And we saw him play a decent amount of snaps last week. It's hard to take a lot from that game just because it was so weird in terms of the snowstorm and just the way that, because it was a blowout. So it's really hard to look at it and say that's going to be the definite plan moving forward. But I saw enough from Le'Veon Bell. He got enough work for me, at least, to just give me some confidence. I think this is probably a good spot where you can start him as an RB3 flex play. As for my sit, I'm going to go with quarterback Josh Allen. So the thing with Allen is he's really dropped off in terms of production over these last couple weeks. He's gone from 31.3 fantasy points per game to 16.6 fantasy points per game. And that's kind of come into coincidence, or by no coincidence, when the Bills have been without the services of John Brown. So again, Brown has been dealing with his knee injury. He's questionable for this week. So if John Brown misses this game, I would be looking at Allen as more of a low-end quarterback one. And the fact of the matter is, the New England Patriots, as bad as they've been, the narrative around them on offense, the dynasty is crumbling. It might be. They're not giving up fantasy points to quarterbacks. They've allowed the fourth fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. Only Mahomes and Russell Wilson are the only quarterbacks to have scored more than 20 fantasy points against them. And Allen hasn't always been great against the New England Patriots defense in the past. The last 2 starts against them, he's averaged under 15 fantasy points per game. The Bills primarily run out of 11 personnel. They run it at the 3rd highest rate in the NFL, and the New England defense has PFF's 3rd highest coverage grade against 11 personnel this week, or this season. So those are going to be my starts and sits.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So my sit is going to be Devontae Parker. You have a few different factors going into this. I mean, he's someone who's produced well. He was also producing with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who was playing at probably an unsustainable level as far as his efficiency is concerned. Now we switch over to Tua, so we don't know what the rapport is going to be there. And Tua's going to probably play worse from a passing perspective than Fitzpatrick no matter what. Because it was just so high of a level to take forward. He's also, we're talking about the Rams defense, Jalen Ramsey. That could be a difficulty there, and it's just going to be it's just going to take a while before we can be confident. I think Tua is going to run a lot. I think they're going to try to hide him a bit behind that offensive line. So it's just more wait and see. If you have another option, I would throw him in there. And when I'm looking to start, I mean, it could really be anyone in the Browns wide receiver core. The 2 main options we have here could be Landry or it could be Higgins. But I think I'm going to actually pump up Higgins a bit here because of the fact that he's a little bit more on the periphery and people may not be thinking about him. He ran more routes than anyone last week. He actually ran a lot of routes the week before when Beckham wasn't injured. He obviously has a rapport with Baker Mayfield. He had 6 targets, 6 catches last week for over 100 yards. It's not exactly a high upside type of play, but if you need someone to slot in there, especially in weeks where there are bye weeks and other concerns there, he's going to be on the field. He's going to be targeted. He's going to have opportunities, and I think that's really what you're going to ask for in a pretty decent matchup that they have this week. So all that together, I think Higgins is a guy you can start to fill in the void if you need to.
Yeah, I'm taking a little bit easier way out on this start. I'm going with Justin Jefferson, and he should be starting in the majority of leagues. Now, it's tough to say auto start these days because every time I say someone's an auto start, one of you people out there in like a 5-team league sends me your 5 top 10 wide receivers. So not an auto start, but we got to just start treating this guy as a weekly, at a minimum top 15, top 16 option at the position. He has been that good. Only Devontae Adams is averaging more yards per route run at the receiver position, just in the league as a whole this season. So the concern has been overall pass game volume. Kirk Cousins wasn't even getting close to clearing 30 pass attempts for the first 4 weeks of the season. We did see before the bye them open up the passing game a little bit, 39 pass attempts against the Seahawks, 36 against the Falcons, and 2 games that, they were forced to kind of try to keep up, keep putting points on the board. I think that's what we're going to see against the Packers this week, and with Jair Alexander tracking Adam Thielen in week 1, and historically, going with Thielen in this matchup, we're looking at Jefferson again to sink his teeth into number 2 and number 3 cornerbacks on the Packers. So again, something that you shouldn't really be questioning too often, but just realize that even if the pass volume goes back down a little bit, Kirk Cousins currently averaging career high marks in yards per attempt and average target depth. So when he does throw, it's been efficient. It's been of the fantasy friendly variety. It's basically going to be every Steelers wide receiver this week. We'll see what Deontay's injury turns out to be, but it's more just a testament to how good the Ravens secondary has been going back to week 1 of 2019. Only Patrick Mahomes, he's done it twice, has thrown for more than 225 yards and multiple touchdowns against this Ravens secondary over the past 2 seasons. It's just, pretty much no-win situation. Maybe one guy manages to have a big game. I mean, they're not immune to, giving up any production of wide receivers, but you look at this passing attack. I mean, Big Ben, he's averaging career low 241 passing yards per game. I'm sorry, his lowest mark since 2008. Dude's been in the league forever, but career low average target depth at 7.8. Unlike Kirk Cousins, Roethlisberger, when he is throwing, it's not downfield. It's not of the fantasy-friendly variety. And, kudos to him. The Steelers are 6-0. He's doing what needs to be done. I mean, losing Big Ben pretty much tanks the Steelers season, as we saw last year. So he's playing smart in real-life football, just not exactly helping his receivers in fantasy football, particularly when all 4 are healthy. And it's a bit muddled than usual, and just anyone's idea of a difficult matchup. So, Claypool, Deontay, Juju, James Washington, maybe one of them pops up, but I think they're all going to probably be ranked outside the top 30 for me this week.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.